Hello there, welcome back to Legends with Derka, where today we're showing off the first Tier 8 Premium Destroyer, Elbing. While she's only initially available for auction, this ship will be back for global XP in the future. So, is she going to be worth it? Let's go check it out. Center, Tears of the Desert, and we're going to start moving up to contest the cap spot for our team, and as we do, let's talk about Elbing. So this Tier 8 Premium German Destroyer is going to come to the game first in the auction, will be available for bid. The bottom bid, 20,000 doubloons. I believe there will be 500 ships, just like the K. Albert. Now, the community managers have indeed confirmed this ship is going to come back for green or global XP in the future and will be available for sale there. So here and now, while I have your attention, I would urge you, don't worry about bidding. I wouldn't worry about the auction at all. Save up your global XP now, and you'll have enough when the ship comes out, and you can get this bad boy for free. All right, now on to the next order of business. I don't think this is the best destroyer. I'm not going to call it a terrible destroyer, but what it really is, it's a pretty good ship. It has a lot of great non-destroyer features. So as we look at the first build, keep in mind that this is a ship that doesn't really play by normal destroyer rules and doesn't fit some of those same roles you might be used to, like gunboat, torpedo boat, etc. We're using aiming systems, prop, rudder, and MBM3. My commander for this game, Eric Bay, and we built mostly into the guns with a typical German destroyer build. Inspirations are Blue Fiora to increase the destroyer speed, and Vincent Mordoff to improve reload. Now, if you do not have those Halloween inspirations, that's okay. There's lots of other good ones to consider. Maybe you could use Louis Violet. That way you disappear more quickly after shooting your guns. You could use Conrad Helfrich to increase your top speed a little bit and your AA. It's a nice little buff. And Charles Madden or Ding Rucheng would help boost the DPM and the reload a little bit on these slow cycling 150mm guns. There are lots of different ways you could go with this. Now, the build that I really think would be good, but I didn't have him a high enough level and I didn't want to dump points in him right now. Reinhard Scheer, he is the German Dewey, basically, just the general commander, and he would be fantastic for this ship. Here's why. His first 4 skills are super useful to Elbing. Increased torp speed, check. This ship needs that. Look at me now, you could keep your concealment. Velocious, Elbing's very slow, that would help there, and beyond range would help your gun range, which is going to fit right into how this ship best plays. Speaking of how this ship plays, did you see what those AP shells did to that broadside Baltimore? Yikes. Now, we took a nasty salvo in return. I'm not convinced that I didn't get screwed over, though, by some of those shells that were aimed at the Atago that squeaked into my smokescreen. But anyways, also, maybe you noticed the mammoth HP pool that this thing has. 30,900. That overshadows even the legendary tier Khabarovsk. So you have a lot of health to play with. So us losing 10k, we'll be fine. The other interesting part about this ship is the bulk of her side armor is actually 25mm. So a lot of destroyers with their 127mm guns, things like Fletcher, Sumner, Gearing, I'm thinking of those American DDs, they're going to shatter those shells on your broadside. Now, the glue portions of the ships, the bow and the stern, they can still get penetrated and damaged, and so can the superstructure on this ship, which is pretty decent size for a destroyer. As ship size goes, this thing is massive. It's huge for a destroyer, very, very big. If enemy DDs were smart, instead of shooting HE at your broadside, they would switch over to AP, and then you would need to angle away from them to kind of reduce the amount of damage that you're taking. Now let's see how this fight with the Sumner plays out. Now, I stuck around in the middle here because for our team to win this game in Epicenter, the Sumner has to die. That's the only way I can flip these mid caps. In a 1v1 gunfight, he wins all day. Really, my purpose here is to keep him spotted, tank some damage, and hopefully my teammates can chime in and help. Kill him. Boom. There we go. See, Elbing is not good at fighting enemy destroyers. Not good at all. Stick around. I'll explain why. Now, the other part when talking about her armor that I wanted to point out, 25 millimeters and this big chunky boy means you're going to arm large caliber shells that normally in a destroyer you would get away with overpins and only taking 10% damage. So the extra armor can also be a bad thing when enemies with larger caliber shells have AP loaded and they target you. Now the Elbing Guns, that's the gimmick of this ship. Elbing has the most accurate guns in the entire game now, roughly half of the dispersion of a normal destroyer. The armor-piercing shells are also outrageously good. They have improved penetration of armor and better penetration angles, meaning they're not going to bounce as much if an enemy ship is angled towards you. Now, as an Elbing captain, this basically means you should almost never switch off of the AP. Just forget about the HE. It's not good at all. The HE shells, they do get quarter pin, which is cool, but the HE alpha is really, really terrible. 1700 damage per shell and a 6.5 second reload. The fire chance, 8%. Equally as bad. Just keep shooting that AP basically, except in a few different scenarios. And let me kind of point out a couple of them. One of them, you get an opportunity, you saw an enemy cycle a damage con. Maybe you flooded them and they DC'd it, or you saw an enemy light a fire and they DC'd a single fire. That would be a good opportunity to set some sort of permanent fire for damage. And less their broadside than just keep ripping with AP. Case in point, just look at the damage numbers on this Kansas. Wow. Also, pro tip. Aim for the upper belt. Don't aim for the belt armor or the citadel, you will shatter. Don't aim for the superstructure, you'll overpin. Just keep targeting that upper belt of battleships. When fighting enemy destroyers, if they're kiting away, sometimes using HE could be a good option there, or if the DD is flat broadside at close range. See, the thing is, these AP shells, they're simply going to fly right through a broadside enemy destroyer. That is one of the reasons why Elbing is not good at fighting DDs. You're going to only deal overpin damage. You have to catch the destroyer just in the right angle for these armor-piercing shells to actually arm and detonate at full strength, which is over 4,000. It's a lot. So if an enemy DD captain knows what they're doing and they know this about the Elbing, they can take advantage of your overpins in a 1v1. They can simply sit there broadside and you'll just overpin. 10% damage each time, that's it. So in that situation, you could switch to HE and maybe try to force them to turn out where you could use your AP again. Just a little note. So Elbing really is all about these guns. They have insane accuracy, and what you can do to enemy cruisers will make you smile. Coming up, we will see as the Belfast 43 and the Suzuya test these AP shells. Another reason it's all about the guns. The torpedoes are painfully slow. Now, they're not as bad as USS Black, who is fresh on our mind after a campaign recently with 43 knots. They come in at 50 knots on Elbing, and they are definitely difficult to get hits with them being this slow. They do have decent yield, 16,500 per torp, and they have great range, 13.5 kilometers. But with as slow as they are, it's going to take a lot of really good predicting, or mainly just using them as zoning torpedoes and kind of hoping enemies will simply run into them, which does happen sometimes. Now the AA is actually really good, 227 AA DPS. That's better than any other tier 8 destroyer that I currently have unlocked. I also looked on wowsbuilds.com. It looks like this is the best of any tier 8 or legendary destroyer. It reaches 6 kilometers. It's pretty weak out there, but when the enemy aircrafts get within 3 kilometers, the 30mm flak 38s kick in, and this thing really pumps out the damage. On that note, you might have noticed in the bottom left, she also has 2 DFAA consumables, so 40 seconds with 200% better AA. You can do a lot of damage to enemy squadrons. Okay, so B-43 pushed me out of the cap. I chose not to fire my guns. I just wanted to wait her radar out. And it paid off. I'm still alive. And now that their attention goes elsewhere, I'm going to get my revenge. These sort of 8, 9, 10, 11 kilometer AP shots at broadside cruisers is what Elbing is all about. And Suzuya, she's next. So we'll turn around here and see what we can do to her. Now, one thing I wanted to point out. When you're watching a video of a ship online, Believe me, I've watched hundreds. You don't really get a feel for how the ship maneuvers and handles on the video by just watching it, but let me tell you, this thing is a bus. 36 knots, top speed, and the turning circle is 890 meters. That's the same as the Georgia. It's really, really bad. Okay, Suzuya's sailing away, 9.6, 9.7 kilometers. Let's see what the AP can do to her. 3 citadels at this range, just pretty outrageous. And looking on the map, she's pretty well angled to me, and we're just absolutely decimating her. So with Suzuya down, we're going to go back up, cap again, and try to keep all these enemy battleships spotted for my team. With my little bit of health, that's probably the best thing I could do right now. Okay, so why do I call this a bad destroyer? Well, as a destroyer, what are the 2 big things you should probably be doing? Spotting, contesting caps. Now, as spotting goes, you can do it just fine in this role, until you can't. Now, our version of Elbing is actually really stealthy thanks to the way that Legends destroyers are, being able to stack things like concealment mod, Eric Bay, look at me now, Swirsky, blah, blah, blah. The PC version does not get that. So here, you can spot just fine for your team and be stealthy. But the issue is you're really more of a long-range gunboat, meaning you're going to want to fire your guns a lot through the match. Now, the problem arises in how big and slow Elbing is. She's such an easy target to hit, and when you're fighting from open water, you can invite a lot of damage. Think back to that first salvo of the game I took. 10k. You can take 2 more of those in the game, and then you're dead, you're done. So depending on what's out there, if you're trying to spot, you're not going to be able to shoot. So using smoke is optimal, but as soon as you smoke up, no spotting. So in this sense, not a good destroyer. So as a gunboat destroyer, we would expect you to contest caps and hunt and kill enemy DDs, right? Well, our issue here is one, we don't have the best DPM to fight enemy destroyers. Gearing, Sumner, Kaba, Fletcher, Friesland, Akazuki, ZF6 Blacks, and others can really hurt you quite a bit in 1v1 DD fights. Elbing's HE damage output is garbage. It's about like a Kagero or a Udachi, and while the AP can be really powerful, a smart enemy DD captain can easily take advantage of it like we showed earlier. So as cap contesting goes, and being a gunboat here and hunting enemy DDs, you're meh, very meh. Plus you don't have sonar, so when contesting caps, smoking up anytime an enemy DD is around is a very bad play. And finally, as a torpedo destroyer, you're also not the best. Yep, you have good torp range. 16.5 damage is okay for the torps, but the torp speed is really going to hurt you here. 50 knots means a lot of misses, and you're going to be very easy for enemy ships to dodge your torpedoes. So in my eyes, in traditional destroyer roles, Elbing just doesn't fit. She's really, really good at punishing enemy cruisers, especially light cruisers that give up broadside, but you know what? Every other ship in the game is good at doing that. Every battleship and heavy cruiser can punish light cruisers just the same. Now, I'm not saying Elbing is a bad ship, no way. The guns are amazing. This ship is going to have a ton of potential. I would say it's got a pretty high skill ceiling that you're going to have to get used to, but once you learn its unique playstyle, wow, this thing's going to be awesome. So that is really my early take on Elbing. You could consider her. The Friesland would be the other DD I would consider, but if you have Friesland, go for Elbing. I don't know if she'll cost more than 750,000 global XP. I guess we'll find out. Now, the game in the background, we brought it back. It was a hard-fought one, and with the 5 caps, we're going to end up with 3,700 base XP. So not a bad game. Elbing is super, super fun. I can't wait to play this ship more. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below about her. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for future videos. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.